By the late 1990s, boxing had a problem. Nobody could figure him out. Trainers watched hours of film. Coaches built game plans. Opponents flew in sparring partners designed to mimic his angles. And they still walked into the ring and looked confused within seconds. Hands down, chin exposed, smiling in the middle of danger. Prince Naseem Hamed wasn't just winning anymore. He was humiliating world champions, men with decades of experience, men who had beaten everyone else. And the scarier part, the more he won, the more comfortable he got. And the more comfortable he got, the more dangerous he became. This is episode 3. This is the peak. This is Naseem Hamed at the height of his powers, and the beginning of a story that doesn't end the way everyone expected. After conquering America against Kevin Kelly at Madison Square Garden, Prince Naseem Hamed became something boxing hadn't really seen before. A global star who people watched not because they expected a close fight, but because they wanted to see how he was going to win. Sold out arenas, million-dollar entrances, fans who showed up just to see the spectacle before the first bell even rang. The featherweight division, a weight class that usually struggles to sell pay-per-view, was suddenly a must-watch, and Naz kept delivering, fight after fight after fight. But dominance does something dangerous to a fighter, when winning starts to feel easy and when the preparation is shorter but the results stay the same. The gap between confidence and arrogance starts to close. And in boxing, you don't always know which side you've crossed to until it's too late. In this episode, we're going inside the years that made Prince Naseem look genuinely untouchable. We're breaking down the fights that cemented his legend, specifically his demolition of 3-division world champion Wilfredo Vázquez and his stunning knockout of the unbeaten IBF king Vuyani Bungu. We're also going to start introducing you to a quiet man in Mexico who was watching every single one of these performances, taking notes, building a plan, because in boxing, every fighter who looks unstoppable is simply waiting for the opponent who studied them long enough. This episode is about peak performance, but it's also about what peak performance can hide and what gets quietly built for fighters who are patient enough to wait for their moment. Stay with us. This one pays off. Here's something most casual fans miss when they watch early Naseem versus late Naseem. He got better, not just more confident, actually technically better. The early Naz, even through the Kelly fight, was explosive but sometimes reckless. He threw wide, he overcommitted, he got dropped multiple times in New York precisely because aggression without timing creates openings. But the version of Naseem Hamed that emerged in 1998 and carried through into 2000 was something more refined, more controlled, more dangerous in the specific way that patient fighters are dangerous. He had learned to lean back just enough, not too far, just enough to make a punch sail past his ear by an inch. Then he'd straighten, time it, and counter in the same motion. He'd used his jab, which many people forget he even had, as a rangefinder. Pop the jab, see how you react, then load the left hand behind it. He started standing still more, letting opponents commit, letting them think he was hurt, letting them think they had him where they wanted him. They almost never did. The southpaw stance gave him a structural advantage over orthodox fighters. His power hand, the left, was lined up directly with their chin, while their power hand had to cross his center to reach him. Most opponents never figured out how to solve that geometry in real time. And the confidence, that famous over-the-top hands behind the back, leaning on the ropes confidence, had evolved into something almost psychological. Fighters were losing before the first punch was thrown, not because Naz was psyching them out with trash talk, because they'd seen the tape. They'd spent weeks watching him make world-class fighters look ordinary. And when they finally got in there with him, feeling that aura up close, watching him taunt with his hands literally behind his back, something broke. That psychological edge wasn't luck. It wasn't a gift. It was forged by pressure over years of training, over hundreds of rounds of sparring, over fighting on undercards at 16 years old when nobody was watching. By the time the world knew his name, Naseem Hamed had already done the work that most fighters never do. The confidence wasn't performed. It was the natural output of a man who had outworked his own doubts until they stopped showing up. April 18th, 1998, Manchester, England. 5 months after the chaos of Madison Square Garden, Naz was back in the UK. And this time, the opponent was legitimately dangerous. Wilfredo Vázquez, Puerto Rico's own, a 3-division world champion with a 57-5 record coming in. He held WBA Super Bantamweight, WBO Featherweight, and WBA Featherweight titles at different points in his career. A veteran of over 60 professional fights. A southpaw himself, which meant the usual geometry that worked against orthodox fighters didn't apply. And Vázquez had power. Real power. The kind that made him dangerous in any round, in any direction. Oh, and Naz had promised to knock him out inside 2 rounds. He didn't, but what happened instead was almost better. Round 1, Hamed was sharp, a succession of right hands, fast pace, taking the round clean. Vázquez looking to counter, taking a measured approach, studying. Late in round 2, Vázquez timed a hard right hook that actually rocked Hamed, genuinely rocked him. The crowd gasped. For a second, the whole building wondered if it was about to be Manchester's version of the Kelly moment. But Naz shook it off, found his feet, and finished the round strong. Round 3. Hamed started to find the range properly. A left hook landed clean and put Vázquez on the canvas for the first time. Down, up, they kept going. Rounds 4 and 5. Hamed controlled, picking his shots, landing the left repeatedly. Vázquez brave, tough, refusing to fold, but being outboxed. Then round 6 happened, and boxing being boxing, the ring ropes came loose. Not slightly loose. One of them snapped entirely and apparently damaged during the Carl Thompson vs. Chris Eubank undercard fight, which had its own chaos. The referee stopped the action. The rope had to be completely removed. For over 5 minutes, both fighters stood in the ring with a gap where the second rope used to be. And Vázquez, who is never not competitive, got in Hamed's face and headbutted him. Twice. The crowd booed. Naz laughed. It was genuinely unhinged. A judge inexplicably scored round 6, a round where Hamed had put Vázquez down before the rope broke. 10-9 for Vázquez. Still unexplained to this day, the fight resumed with a missing rope in Manchester in front of 12,000 people. Round 7, Vázquez came forward. He came out aggressive, and Naz waited. 1 beat, 2 beats, then a straight left hand that sent Vázquez down for the 3rd time. Vázquez tried to rise, couldn't. A second left hand, same shot, sent him down again. Referee stops it. TKO, round 7, 2 minutes and 29 seconds. Final scorecards at stoppage: 59-53, 58-54, 58-55, all in Hamed's favor. Only the 3rd man in Vázquez's 61 fight career to stop him. After the Kelly chaos in New York, the boxing media had questioned Naz's tightness, his discipline, whether he could beat a genuine elite technician without relying on the chaos bomb. Vázquez was a legitimate test, and Naz passed it with a broken ring, a headbutt, and a corrupt scorecard thrown in for good measure. That is what it means to be built for fighters. Not just ready for the opponent, ready for the opponent, the venue, the crowd, the politics, the ropes falling off, and the headbutt, and still finishing the job in round 7. Some nights in boxing, you have to beat everything the sport throws at you, not just the man in front of you. Between Vázquez in 1998 and Bungu in 2000, Naz didn't slow down. Wayne McCullough, former WBC Super Bantamweight champion, known as the Pocket Rocket, a man who had never been stopped in his career, went 12 rounds with Hamed in October 1998 and lost every single one of them on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards. Tom Johnson, IBF featherweight champion for 3 years, got dropped by a huge uppercut in round 8 and was stopped. Paul Ingle, future IBF featherweight champion, and was stopped in 11 rounds in December 1999 in what was widely seen as a more grueling night than Naz wanted to admit publicly. Cesar Soto, WBC featherweight champion, went 12 rounds and lost a unanimous decision in October 1999, adding the WBC belt to Hamed's collection. By the time 2000 arrived, Prince Naseem Hamed held the WBO featherweight title and had unified with the WBC. He was the lineal champion of the division. He had 15 WBO title defenses. He was 25 years old, and the entrances were genuinely becoming as famous as the fights. The flying carpet, suspended from the ceiling, carrying Naz down to the ring while the crowd lost its mind. Michael Jackson music, laser shows, giant video walls. At the Kelly fight in New York, he made America wait 9 minutes for a backflip. At the Vázquez fight in Manchester, he had lasers, smoke, fire, and glowing letters spelling out NAZ before he even appeared. Traditionalists hated it, broadcasters loved it, casual fans tuned in just for the entrance. And here's what those same traditionalists refused to acknowledge. Naz was right. He was creating a blueprint that every boxing promoter and fighter in the next 2 decades would try to copy. The spectacle, the persona, the event as entertainment. You want to talk about viral fighters? Floyd Mayweather built his entire money persona on the same architecture, minus the backflip. Adrian Broner, Gervonta Davis, every fighter who uses entrance theatrics to build a brand. They all have a debt to this kid from Sheffield who figured it out 20 years before social media existed. March 11th, 2000, London Olympia, Kensington, Prince Naseem Hamed versus Vuyani Bungu, billed as capital punishment. Now, Vuyani Bungu needs a proper introduction, because this wasn't a tune-up. Bungu was from the Eastern Cape of South Africa, IBF super bantamweight champion for 5.5 years, 23 consecutive successful title defenses, an undefeated record at the time Naz called him out, the kind of fighter who had seen everything, beaten everyone, and had a granite chin backed up by legitimate power, coming off 3 consecutive fights where Naz had gone the distance, the McCullough 12-rounder, the Soto 12-rounder, and the grueling Ingle 11-rounder. The British boxing press was starting to write a different narrative. Was the Prince declining? Was the style getting exposed? Had the long nights in Vegas and the shortened training camps finally started to show? Naz heard all of it, and he came into the Bungu fight promising he'd be, quote, back to my best. He was not lying. Rounds 1 through 3, Hamed controlled everything. Jabs, movement, impactful combinations, Bungu trying to be aggressive, trying to bully his way inside, but Naz reading every movement and making him pay. Then round 4 arrived, Bungu came forward, Hamed stepped to his left, just slightly outside the line of Bungu's power, and loaded the left hand. Not a combination, not a setup, just one perfectly timed straight left hand to the chin. Bungu went down face first, not backwards, not sideways. Face first, flat, the kind of knockout where the body just stops getting the signal. He tried to get up, he pushed himself off the canvas. Referee Joe Cortez watched him and immediately waved it off. Fight over, 1 minute and 38 seconds into round 4. Final scores at stoppage, 30-27 on all 3 judges' scorecards. Unanimous, dominant. Puff Daddy was at ringside. Naz was carried around the ring on his trainer's shoulders. The crowd at London Olympia was in full celebration. This was Naseem Hamed at his most precise. One punch, 5 years of IBF title defenses erased in 1 second. And here's what that one punch actually represented. It wasn't just power, it was timing. Timing that only comes from thousands of rounds of preparation, from studying opponents so deeply you know where they'll be before they do, from never letting success make you lazy in the moments that actually matter. That punch was the product of a man who had never stopped being made under pressure, even when it looked effortless from the outside. Here's the uncomfortable truth about the Bungu performance. It was brilliant, it was vintage Naz, it was exactly what everyone wanted to see. But it came after 3 consecutive fights where Hamed had gone the full 12 rounds against opponents who, on paper, he should have stopped. McCullough, 12 rounds. Soto, 12 rounds. Ingle, 11 rounds before the finish. For a man with a 31 knockout rate and a reputation built entirely on ending fights early, 3 consecutive distance fights was a pattern. Maybe not a problem, but a pattern. The Bungu knockout silenced the critics for a moment, but the murmurs inside boxing circles didn't stop, because those closest to Hamed, cornermen, journalists who covered him regularly, people inside the camp, were noticing things the public couldn't see. Training camps getting shorter, the lifestyle of a superstar, the late nights, the celebrity circles, the comfort of having already won everything, and was starting to compete with the discipline that built all of it. After the Bungu win, Hamed fought Augie Sanchez in August 2000 in Connecticut. He won, knocked him out in 4 rounds. But he broke his hand badly in the process and spent 6 months out of the gym. During those 6 months, he gained 35 pounds. 35 pounds on a featherweight when Emmanuel Stewart, one of the greatest trainers in boxing history, arrived to oversee the final 2 weeks weeks of Hamed's training camp before the Barrera fight, he was immediately worried. He'd just seen Barrera look razor sharp in a stoppage win in Las Vegas, and he watched Naz not take his sparring seriously. Stewart said afterwards that Hamed treated his Mexican sparring partners like warm-up exercises. He didn't respect them, and those Mexican sparring partners, brought in specifically to replicate Barrera's style, were the exact thing he needed to take seriously. He didn't, and somewhere in Big Bear, California, Marco Antonio Barrera was training like a monk, not for the glory, not for the money, for 12 rounds of systematic dismantling. There's a phrase that gets lost when talent is that obvious. Seconds 91. In the last 91 seconds before everything falls apart, the last moments where the work you put in is the only thing that can save you. You find out whether the preparation was real or whether it was the reputation of preparation. Naz had built a legend on real work, but legends can start to believe their own story, and when that happens in boxing, the sport eventually corrects the record. Prince Naseem genuinely believed, that speed and power could solve any problem the sport put in front of him. For 6 years and 36 fights, he'd been right. But boxing has always rewarded patience over flash, structure over chaos, discipline over belief alone. And soon the showman was going to meet a fighter who refused to play his game. A man who wouldn't chase him around the ring, wouldn't get emotional, wouldn't get distracted by the trash talk or the entrance or the hands behind the back taunts. A man who had watched every fight, studied every pattern, identified every gap. Marco Antonio Barrera of Mexico, 61 wins, 5 losses, but those losses came early, and Barrera had spent years evolving into something more dangerous, more disciplined, more complete than the fighter he'd been at 22. He didn't need to be faster than Naz, he just needed to be there every time Naz wasn't. And for the first time in his professional career, Prince Naseem Hamed was going to face someone who was completely immune to his magic. Greatness isn't measured when things are easy, it's revealed when the pressure refuses to move. That's been the whole story of this series, and episode 4 is where we find out what happens when the pressure doesn't just refuse to move. It comes with a game plan. If you're not subscribed to Knockout Kings Elite, hit that button right now. This is not the channel for casual fans. This is the channel for people who want to understand boxing, not just watch it. Drop a comment below. We'll debate every single reply. Episode 4 is coming. The story is about to change.